Have you ever heard a story that feels like it's been around forever? Well, today, we're going to dive into one of those really old, classic tales from Aesop's fables. It's called The Wolf and the Lamb. And believe me, even though it's simple, its message is super powerful.
So let's just jump right in. We're going to read through this story together, piece by piece, and then we'll talk about what it all means. It's a pretty short story, but it definitely packs a punch.
All right, so our story kicks off in what sounds like a really peaceful, normal place. Let's set the scene and meet our two main characters.
So try to picture this. You've got this little lamb just minding its own business, getting a drink of water from a stream. But a little farther up that same stream, there's a hungry wolf watching. See how the scene feels calm, but you can already sense there might be some trouble coming? You know, what makes this story work so well is just how different these two are. First, you have the lamb, who is totally innocent, very polite, and pretty much helpless. And then you have the wolf. He's hungry, he's fierce, and he's cunning, which is just a fancy way of saying he's tricky and maybe a little sneaky.
Okay, this is where things start to get really interesting. The wolf has already made up his mind. He's going to eat the lamb. But for some reason, he feels like he needs to come up with an excuse first. He's basically trying to start a fight.
So the wolf starts things off by yelling at the lamb, accusing him of making the water dirty. But think about it for a second. Does that even make any sense? But the lamb comes back with a really smart and logical answer. You know how a stream flows, right? It always flows in one direction, from upstream to downstream. Since the wolf is upstream from the lamb, it's literally impossible for the lamb to be making his water muddy. The lamb is totally right.
The wolf, though, he's not interested in facts or logic. He just gets even angrier and tries a different attack. Now he's accusing the lamb of spreading rumors about him a whole year ago.
And once again, the lamb has a perfect, simple, and truthful answer. He couldn't have been talking about the wolf last year because he wasn't even born yet. Another one of the wolf's excuses just completely falls apart.
Now you can really start to feel how desperate the wolf is getting, can't you? He's run out of good arguments, so he just starts blaming the lamb's family. It's a pretty weak move.
And for the last time, the lamb gives a simple, honest answer. Boom! Just like that, the lamb has proven that every single one of the wolf's accusations was a lie, just by using the facts. So, if we were keeping score, the lamb has clearly won the argument, right? But here's the thing. This story doesn't have a happy ending. It's about to take a really dark and unfair turn. And there it is. This is the moment the wolf finally stops pretending. He basically admits that the whole argument was fake. It didn't matter what the lamb said because the wolf was always planning to eat him. He just wanted an excuse.
And just like that, it's over. It's a pretty harsh ending, isn't it? It teaches us a tough lesson. Sometimes, being right and telling the truth isn't enough to protect you from someone who is bigger, stronger, and just determined to be cruel.
So every one of these fables has a moral, a lesson it's trying to teach us. After such a sad story, what are we supposed to take away from all this? Well, there are a few really big ideas here. First, a bully or a tyrant will always be able to make up a reason for being mean. Second, someone who is being unfair isn't going to listen to logic, no matter how right you are. And finally, for a bad person, pretty much any excuse will do.
Let's talk about that word, tyrant. What does it mean? It's actually pretty simple. A tyrant is just someone who is cruel and unfair and uses their power, like being bigger or stronger, to hurt others. In our story, the wolf was definitely the tyrant. And what about that word, unjust? That's another easy one. Unjust just means not fair. The whole situation was completely unjust because the wolf refused to listen to the lamb's very fair and honest answers. He had already decided what was going to happen.
So all of this brings us to one last big question to think about.
The lamb gave real, honest reasons why he was innocent. The wolf just gave a bunch of fake excuses for his bad behavior. So what do you think the real difference is between a reason and an excuse? That's what this amazing old story leaves us with.